10 pounds of cornbread fresh out of the oven. Hi, and welcome to Yeti at Large. This is a channel focused on making the most out of what you have, no matter where you're at. Thanks for tuning in and helping out. But this is my reliable cornbread recipe, and as you can see by the portions here, the total weight of this batch weighs 39 pounds and 4 ounces. Well, we don't need to make 40 pounds of cornbread batter today. So, using the concepts of scaling, I divided it into 4, and I'm going to confirm that if this adds up to 10 pounds. I do everything by weight. I don't do volume, so you won't see cups and teaspoons typically in my recipes because weight is the only constant. I'm going to add all these up, and I'll see if it comes out to be exactly 1/4. If it doesn't, I know I've made a mistake somewhere. One of the secrets that we're going to do, a little bit of butter, a little bit of bacon fat, sour cream, and buttermilk. I think it's funny that buttermilk and butter are put back together when you could just use regular milk, but a lot of people say it gives you a really specific flavor. I'll whip the eggs ahead of time and then paddle them into this to make a nice fluffy mixture. I'll sift all my dry ingredients together, including the cornmeal, pastry flour, brown sugar, baking powder, and salt. And then I'll incorporate them into that, being careful not to overmix it. I don't want to build up any gluten that might be in that pastry flour. To make it fun, I'm going to add bacon crumbles, green chilies, cheese, and I may add some onion, some diced red peppers, you name it. Anything I can clean up that are going to go in there and add to it, we're going to do it. We'll bake this at 375 until it's firm. Who knows how long that'll take? All depends on the humidity, the barometric pressure, and whether or not my oven is on tack. Freeze frame the video and feel free to copy the recipe. And don't over-focus that I use an old-fashioned even arm balance scale. Whether you're using cups and teaspoons or you're using a tare, T-A-R-E, style scale, do whatever works for you. Just remember, consistency is the key. As we begin to scale the ingredients here, you're going to see that weight on one side has to even out with product on the other side. We'll skip through a lot of this because it can be pretty monotonous, and I'm very disciplined about washing and storing stuff as I go. But every time I need to add something, I put a few ounces or a pound on there, and I add product to make up for what I need. Now, in a commercial bakery, no one is permitted to talk to somebody who's scaling ingredients, and the person running the scale isn't allowed to talk so they can focus and not make mistakes. I check my math constantly as I go through the recipe to make sure the weights are where they belong. Back in the day, I wouldn't have been caught dead using a household little hand mixer, but now I find them quite handy and they work rather well. I put out a bag of pancake mix there because it allows me to bed the bowl onto that so that it doesn't walk around when I'm trying to mix it. Going through the ingredients, we're keeping a close eye for the freshness of the ingredients, the quality. I've already sifted this cornmeal once, but typically any dry ingredients I use I'll run through the sifter. This is very high quality polenta style cornmeal. I love it. You're going to notice the scale lands kind of heavy there. Again, it's cornbread, doesn't have to be exact. So once I'm to the point where the recipe's all assembled and I've been careful not to overwork the dough to work the gluten out, I added that cheese, the bacon bits, the green chilies. I'm going to let the dough rest for a minute, clean my workspace, and prepare my topping and the pans for baking. Now I like using a lightly damp, clean towel to hold my cutting board so it doesn't slide around on the table. It's a safety thing. And I wash the cutting board between every use. The topping for this that we're going to make involves fine dicing a yellow sweet onion, adding a little bit of dried cilantro, a little cumin, and just a tiny drizzle of olive oil, stirring it all together. Almost imagine it like being a little streusel topping. While we're cutting this onion though, let's talk about the elephant in the room, cornbread. A lot of people watching this video are going to have very strong opinions about what is and what isn't cornbread. Well, I'll tell you, I'm not going to take anything away from those, and I guarantee you that your mother or grandmother made the finest cornbread you're ever going to have, and some guy on YouTube isn't going to come near that. That being said, this is what we're serving for dinner tonight. So if you want to wash up and grab a plate and join us at the table, you're more than welcome. If you want to complain that this isn't real cornbread, you're just spitting in the wind because we haven't got time for it. You do you, and we'll do us. That being said, I've made every kind of cornbread under the sun. I've boiled the cornmeal to moisten it. I've done straight cornmeal in a hot iron skillet, and I've done this kind of cake style cornbread. And I gotta tell you, I love them all. The best cornbread is the one that's made fresh on the table and it's ready to eat. Food is always best when it meets you where you need it most. So we're going to make our little topping here for the cornbread and set that aside. I thought about mixing it into the batter, but I really like it when the onions caramelize on top a little bit. So these are a couple little pancake style samplers. I haven't made cornbread in a long time and I'm not sure about this batter. So I wanted my sweetheart to test a little sample to make sure the batter is good. I also can't find my parchment paper for my half sheet pans because of the move we just did recently. So I sprayed a little spritz in there and put a little cornmeal to do an old-fashioned dusting style. You can see that I'm drinking a little Côte d'Aron red wine while I'm cooking. Nothing wrong with that at all at home. Here's the conundrum that I'm at. I can't remember my specific half sheet pan scale weights, so I was guessing that this 10-pound batch of cornbread needed about 5 pounds per sheet pan. But sitting here looking at it, I'm feeling like I'm wrong and that I don't have enough batter to do 2 pans because it's going to be really, really thin, and I don't want it to be thin. I want more of a tall, dramatic piece of cornbread. So I'm doing math in my head, and I'm coming to the conclusion that I don't have enough batter for 2 pans, but I think I have too much batter for 1 pan. Well, it's a good thing that I got a little red wine that I can sip on while I work out the math and figure this out. Hey, that's not cool. That was her glass after all. Mine's up on the counter. Also packed away are my offset spatulas, so spreading this in the pan is going to be a little more of a challenge than I imagined without picking up my cornmeal dusting on the bottom. And yep, I instantly just made an executive decision that I didn't have enough batter for 1 pan. And now I'm looking at it, thinking I've got way too much batter for... I didn't have enough batter for 2 pans, but now I think I got way too much batter for 1 pan. I wished I had one of these pan extenders we used to use in the bakery. Oh well. 1 hour later at 375 Fahrenheit, baking at 7,000 feet altitude with relatively low humidity, and the cornbread stayed in the pan. Look at that, hanging by a thread. We're not going to wait around too long. We're going to cut into this right away and have ourselves a slice of cornbread. We're sure glad you're here and coming along to help out. And it's cornbread, so it's going to be a mess. Can't believe it didn't boil out of the edges when it was rising up. This is cornbread made with a creaming method. Basically, when you grind the fats and sugars together, add the eggs, add any salt and leavening ingredients, and then add your dry ingredients, cornmeal and flour, and then add your wet sour cream and buttermilk in this case. It is moist, it's smoky, it's got 2 kinds of cheeses, it's a hot mess. And it's delicious. So the real test of any cornbread isn't 5 minutes after it came out of the oven. Of course it's going to be delicious. The test is the next day after it's been in the fridge overnight. Anybody ever eat a piece of cornbread so dry it sucked all the moisture out of your bones down to your marrow? That's terrible. A couple of tricks that you can do, obviously, is heat it up in the microwave. And I don't have any honey butter made, but I do have butter, as you can see. And I got our little honey bear. I'm just going to put a little on there and call that honey butter for right now. One of the things I did not point out very clearly is that we're using unsalted butter for any baking recipes. The blue label usually gives that away. I heated this up in the microwave. Certainly it's cheating. It's going to be delicious. But if you really want to take it to the next level, take your piece of cornbread, put a little butter in a saute pan, and griddle that sucker till it's got a little sizzle on a few sides. That's going to bring it to life. Last night after we pulled this cornbread out of the oven, my sweetheart heated up some black bean soup, and we put that in a bowl with some of this cornbread and a big old dollop of sour cream. It was fantastic. Please, go out and make some cornbread of your own, and do like I'm about to do and share with your neighbors. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. We're trying to get some steam back in the boiler to get the channel up and running again after a lot of life events. So your support is very helpful.